So the last three were for Mr. Flanagan, so he can't hear from us today. So welcome to the welcome to the March 6th Marine Advisory Board meeting. Thank you all for coming. Let's start with the call to order, please, and a roll call.
Mr. Flanagan.
Here.
Mr. Swindell. Mr. Lynch.
Here.
Mr. Brunel.
Here.
Ms. Norvell. Mr. Franks.
Here.
Mr. Dunbar.
Here.
Mr. Beckoff.
Here.
Ms. Ware. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Chair Whitcomb.
Here.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Approval of minutes. Lot of ground we covered last month. Just if anybody's had a chance to look at the minutes, great minute taking, by the way. That was an outstanding effort for your first time. Anybody have any issues, thoughts, concerns, corrections on the minutes? Would somebody be kind enough to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion. Second.
Second. We have a roll call vote to approve.
Yeah, just for the record, it was Mr. Brunel for the motion, and who was the second?
Jason.
Don't do a roll call. Everybody in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? No more roll call. Okay, so waterway crime and safety voter report. Before I get to that, let me just give you a couple quick updates on a couple things that occurred last month, because we're gonna have Bob Dunkel's gonna give us a little conversation during old and new business, but I wanted to touch on a few points. First of all, Carl Williams is somewhere here. Thank you for joining us, Carl. Anybody knows. So he's obviously checking up on Andrew. We are very fortunate. Thank you for stopping by and joining us. A couple quick things, vacancies. We have 2 vacancies on the board now. One is under Dean Trantolis and one is under Steve Glassman. If you know folks that are interested in joining us, we would love to increase the board. The quality of the folks that have joined recently has been extraordinary. So if you know somebody, let's increase this. One of the issues we seem to have every month is the quorum. We don't have it here, but we want more quality guys. So let's improve what we got here. So nominate your friends and neighbors. Update. City Commission meeting. At our last month's meeting, we approved a waiver for 1180 North Federal, the condos at Riva, and Big Wide Canal, no issues there, etc. That was unanimously approved by the City Commission. We then had 1414 Southeast 12th, our dear friend Nick Dory, who's at this point he should be on the board. He spent so much time with us at Hemingway Condos. That was recommended by us and rejected by the City Commission. Life goes on. I want to thank Glenn Wiltshire and the Port Everglades group for a terrific presentation last month. There's some more information on the table they left us. A couple other quick things. Anthony Fajardo was gracious enough to let me know that they're getting close to choosing a chief waterway officer, and they should be announcing that shortly. That would be obviously very positive for us. And also, we had a meeting, Travis, myself, a handful of fellows that Anthony organized to discuss illegal charters. Probably the single most important thing that came out of this meeting is not only are we the boating capital of the world, I think we're the private shower capital of the world. So we're encouraging these pontoon boats. We just have to figure out how to make them a little more legal, and that will come up as well in our discussion. But that's something clearly that Anthony is working on. Okay, so with that, we're going to get to waterway crime and boating safety report. We have changed it to reports. We have 3 gentlemen sitting at the end of the table. We will start this time with Travis O'Neill from PD.
All right. For the month of February, we had a pretty busy month. I'll go over a few of the highlights of the month. There was 2 vessels broken into a cable marine. There was a total of 4 Garmin GPS stolen and some rods and reels. Unfortunately, the victims did not want their boats processed, so we were unable to process them for fingerprints. There also was no video of value, so not a lot to go on. I would say If the GPS is recovered, then that would be the only thing we're gonna really have for it to be prosecutable.
Which cable yard was that?
Cable Marine,
Which one? East or west?
Oh, okay, what, I'm sorry, so what's your name?
North back up.
it is indicated more,
East.
but southeast.
Okay, that's.
Also a yacht was broken into. Well, they list as a burglary. The owner of the yacht suspects a captain he fired, stole some sea bobs, brand new sea bobs off the boat. Mr. Walter, don't know how legitimate that is or not, but I guess the owner was just putting two and two together that he fired the captain, and then all of a sudden, 20,000 of those sea bobs are missing. He was fully cooperative. We processed the boat and everything, and got witness statements from him. So hopefully there'll be something come of that. Um, this is a stolen vessel. That's what we listed it as. We have no evidence that it's not stolen. I will say that we only were in touch with the representative for the owner. The owner was out of the country. There's been some discussion between this person, the reportee, and the owner of the property he had the vessel at, whether it was potentially towed away or stolen. We couldn't prove either way. He was adamant it was stolen. So as of now, it's listed as a stolen vessel until we get more information. We have been trying to get in touch with the actual owner of the vessel, but he's out of the country. We have not been able to get a hold of him. So for now, it is listed as a stolen vessel. It's a sport fish. It's taken from 2618 Whale Harbor Lane. So I won't be surprised by the story that this is actually not stolen. It's just some sort of mechanic thing, lean, because there was somebody working on the engine. It didn't run. I don't see anybody towing away a big sport fish that doesn't even run. That's an older sport fish. We had a individual who was observed standing on top of the north side of the Sunrise Bridge of the Intercoastal. Callers called in thinking it was a possible suicidal subject. My officers responded. It turns out that he was actually a suspect of a car burglary and was trying to get away from the land police officers, and he was standing on the bridge. My officers made contact with him, able to get a rapport with him, and then able to convince him to come down off the bridge and onto the boat, where he was able to take him into custody without incident. So I thought that was a good job by my guys doing that. It's great. Also, we had 5 vessel accidents this year. One of note, it's happened open water out on the ocean, where a male was in a dinghy diving. I guess a boat did not see the dive flag and ended up striking the individual, and the prop hit his leg. He was brought into shore to a waiting ambulance and was taken away. That the boat did not stick around and continued northbound. We had a description of the boat. We put a bin of lookout out for that vessel that's heading northbound. Contact obviously the sheriff's department to make sure they knew, and FWC they knew to keep an eye on the boat.
They did have a dive flag out?
That's what was reported to us. We were unable to visually confirm that. And last but not least, some good news. In September, I reported to you guys, actually it was October 1st, the October meeting, that in September, that 15th Street Fishery was burglarized. There was a good video on that. We were able to pull prints off that. They got a print match to a suspect. They put a lookout out for that suspect, and one of our plainclothes detective actually recognized the person in the gun lookout, knew where he hung out, found him, and arrested him. So he was arrested for breaking in 15th Street Fisheries.
Good job, thank you.
That's it.
You know, it's interesting for a community that's as large as we are in the voting standard of the world, etc. The fact that there really are minor issues, honestly, thefts, etc. I think we're quite fortunate. So you guys do a phenomenal job. So thank you. Ed Easton is our code compliance officer. Ed, as we've told Ed there's a permanent seat there and hopefully he'll join us every month. Ed, give us an update on your month.
Well, I pulled a 90-day period stat sheet, and we conducted 81 waterway inspections during that time, which I'm sure it's going to be way over because we do a lot from the shoreline too. So if I get a call and I can identify a violation from a shoreline, I'll do that. But they don't show up on that stat sheet. Shows up as an initial for me. The only time I schedule for a waterway is if I cannot identify it, like a neighbor will not give me access to their property to view it. I'll schedule a waterway the following week, and they'll go out and take photos of the water, and then I'll conduct a follow-up from shore. We have 81. Our boat was down for a little while early on in the 90-day period, so we probably could have got done more during that time frame. But 81's pretty good. We go out twice a week, usually on Tuesday and Thursday. We usually go out depending on the weather and manpower. But we've been trying to keep an eye out for the derelict vessels in the waterway, identifying them. I know we're trying to get into the ability to tow them. It's a process. It takes a while to do that, unlike a car. But we've been working on that, trying to get that to happen. But that's about it.
So if you, just out of curiosity, you go on the water, you get in the boat somewhere,
Yes.
and where do you go?
Well, usually we'll get on at by 15th Street Fisheries over there, where we keep our boat, and we go anywhere throughout the whole city. Could be all the way up to McNabb. It could take us 45 minutes to get up there to us all to an hour, depending on can't go fast.
And if you're moping along, nobody knows the rules better than you, and you see a boat that's sticking way out, do you stop bothering?
Oh yes, we can do a proact. We do a proact.
But you could spend all day doing that.
Sure. Yeah. We have re-inspections scheduled from the other code officers that need them to go out, and we'll usually handle them first because they've been waiting. But we will jot down the address and go back to it during our travel. But yeah, we'll be on that boat all day, and we try to keep an eye out for the derelict vessels and the docks in disrepair. But if we find a dock in disrepair, we'll notify that code officer that handles that area to do an initial case on it.
So if you would think of it, if you come across something that seems confrontational, etc., we speak to Travis throughout the month, etc. If you come across something, please feel free to send a photo or something to Andrew, and he'll keep us abreast of what's going on. That would be very helpful if you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Andre, will you put up number 1, please? So we have Chad Robertson, who, by the way, if you look up the word kick-ass in the dictionary, that's him. So Chad Robertson's kick-ass guy. He's captain at the Marine Patrol. You have no idea where I found it.
No.
Put up number 2. So so Travis, I'm sorry. So no, I'm just smiling at it. So these are photos we pulled. I don't know. Put up slide 2, please. So tell us about this.
So a couple of years ago, Chuck put that up. A couple of years ago, there were some kids that, when we used to go out and train a lot, there were kids that lived over off of Sistrunk in Regal Trace. And every time we would train, these kids would always come and, try to hang out with us and stuff. And we would train and mess with them and let them play with the hoses and stuff. And one kid just seemed really, really interested and kept coming to us. And one day I said, hey, you got to get going. You got to go do your homework and get to school. And the kid kind of opened up and he said, I don't know how to do it. And I don't have any parents at home to help me. So right then and there, we stopped training. We got on the truck. We opened up his books and we kind of went through a bunch of stuff. And I kind of took a personal approach with this kid. And we helped him. And for a while, I got his mom's phone number. There was no father involved. And I stayed on him for a while. So one day we went over to the school and I showed up. And when I went to the principal, I said, hey, we want to see where the kid's name was. She said, "What did he do now?" And I said, "He didn't do anything, but I want to speak to the teacher." And when we walked into the room, the kid looked and he saw me and he just went like this. And the teacher came out. She said, "I don't know what's going on, but the last 3 weeks, this kid has done his homework every single day and has totally done a 360. So I contacted our Fire Benevolent Association, told them about the kid, and we were able to raise money through the museum and stuff like that and get him a computer, bike. And I told the mom, we want to do it all, but it did not come from us. Make it come from Santa Claus. And she came here and picked everything up, and a couple of the upper staff heard about it and nominated me for Hometown Hero for one of those things that I feel a lot of other people deserve it more than that.
This is the reason we're all here. It's the reason there's a bunch of guys are gray here and some younger guys, because again, we're trying to make sure our kids, grandkids, et cetera, can enjoy it. So thank you very much. I'm gonna ask you to give a report, but it humbles by that.
But wait, may I ask one question? The picture is, who are you finding with?
Major Scott Pets, it's the Thunderbirds. So we took off out of Fort Lauderdale. We went up. I have video of it. It's on the but he took up. I wanted to crap, pee, and go off, all at the same time.
Big breakfast.
You know, we took off from here and we were in Avon Park in Tampa in about 12 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And we did 40 minutes in the air there. And then he pushed me to 9.5 keys where I almost passed out. And then we came to Fort Lauderdale. He got right along the water's edge. And it was a blur from like way from Tampa to East Coast down the water line. I saw a beach place. He banked it. We were in Bimini. He banked it and we landed. This last year, one of the motormen for the police department got to do it, which was a great.
That's cool.
Getting back to this.
Right.
You got
You're
the
lovely.
So we obviously had a few things. We had a couple fires. We had a couple interesting events. It seems like most of what occurred was on the water. I'm gonna just see if we can, would you put up slide number 3, Andres? So this was obviously a boat fire we all heard about. You touch on that, John?
Was this the one that we talked about? I don't have this one on my, this isn't the one from last that we talked about.
This just occurred yesterday or 2 days ago, right?
I don't have that one in my notes.
The last week? It was last week. So, at Lauderdale Marine Center, so LMC, which is obviously sold. So I'll tell you, the cruise extinguished fire. The fire department did an amazing job. Next story, please.
So I have from Q1, we have run 19 calls for the month of February. We're at 7. We responded to 5 drownings, 5 open water boat accidents, 2 boat fires on the open water, 1 inland boat fire, which was probably that one, 2 marine accidents, inland, 1 water rescue, and then 3 calls for other services. One of the calls I was going to talk about was on the first, when Travis just talked about, was the gentleman swimming. We actually had, as they respond, they know as well, the person got put on the thing and got brought in. We had spring break details out on golf carts that got there really quick. And then our units got there as well. It was a 2100 block of A1A. They put tourniquets, but I saw pictures of the laceration. It was pretty significant laceration. And then on the 4th of this month at 3 a.m., we had a boat in Lake Sylvia go up against the bridge and hit a power line. It came in as a power line down. The fireboat did not respond, but when our units got there, they noticed the people were off the vessel, but FP&L got there and said, anytime something hits those lines, it gives three charges for animals and stuff like that to get off. And it's amazing. He said it's shocking that nobody touched something that was grounded because there was 3 occupants on that could have been killed. It was an older gentleman. He was trying to get back on the boat. He thought before a salvage company came and tried to pull it, he was going to get it. But with the winds and the current, they kind of got salvage company to come and do it.
So it's interesting, we've discussed, keeping a fire boat on the water at least 5 days a week. We keep hearing the rationale for that. We had that discussion with Anthony Fajardo the other day, explaining that every one of the firemen are EMTs, every one of the firemen are divers. So if police are jammed up, you got another boat. You guys that truly assist. And if we start cataloging every time you're out there and something happens, it's a lot of good, some things that happen. So just remember this, guys. We got to get a boat for them.
The contact that we have when we're out training is our numbers with.
It's unbelievable. So we got to be made aware of that. Would you go to slide number 5, please? So this was really 5. So this was really exciting. This is a sewer main break. I don't know if anybody wants to address this, etc., but I got to imagine you lose your appetite if you're at South Florida.
Are we sure it was sewer? Because I asked,
Yes, it's a 16-inch.
That's
So,
what I'm
force
wondering.
main break.
I went over there where the engineers report this. I asked, 'cause that's my neighborhood, and Tony's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
They said, no, it's a water main, and there was no odor whatsoever. So I just wondered, I saw sewer in the next door, or whatever that is, neighborhood line. I heard people saying sewer, but when I asked the engineer that was sitting there on top of the intersection of 15th and Cordova, they said, no, it was a water main break. And so, but plus there was no odor. We have had that break before.
Yeah.
And the key ingredient to know it's
That
sewer.
rain doesn't look like water.
Yeah. Swimming. Yeah, it's
Probably
dark
is.
brown. though.
Andre, can you go back one slide, please?
And where that main broke,
This
They
is what the
just-
town put out.
FDEP said it was a 16-inch
I'm
water,
pretty happy with
was
that.
sewer main.
This
That was Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
I believe that. I mean, that,
The other thing is according to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Main, it says.
Yeah. According to the FDEP report that was put out, that spill occurred at 1:10 in the afternoon, and it was capped by 2 p.m. And that's a pretty fast response time. So you know, that's not too bad. What is odd about that report is that it normally will evaluate how many gallons got spilled, and in this particular report, that didn't happen. So, but that's what I know about.
So, one other quick thing, I stepped in front of you, we had put together this whiteboard, thing we keep sending around, and, it's not getting dusty, we are working on it. We added one thing, and these are not in order of anything, but, after speaking with, Bob Duncan this week, we added the second one, which is property line, / wet face, and then extraordinary strike through circumstances. So Bob is working on better clarifying whether we use property line or wet face, and better clarifying the term extraordinary circumstances. We'll discuss a little bit, but this is on our list as well to discuss. So our next discussion, are we going to go into waivers, or do you want to do the water taxing? It's up to you. I'm fine. Do you have somebody who want to come with water taxing first? Would you prefer?
We could jump in the water. Actually.
So, okay, is Ben Rogers here somewhere? Right there. Ben, you got the floor, man, if you wanna explain what's going on with this. I'll drop it. This is a proposed ordinance amendment, we call it whistle stops and water taxi code authority. And Ben, if you could make more sense out of this, you would, for joining us.
So first off, introduction, my name is Ben Rogers, I'm an acting city manager for the city, and I support the Parks and Rec department, so we were working with the water taxi on some locations and look at their agreements and service areas that they do. As we went through it, we were going through the code, and at the time, Jonathan retired, and so there was a vacancy there. We realized the code said that the supervisor is the one who can authorize certain actions associated with that section of the code. Not knowing when that position was to be filled, we started working with our attorney's office. Said, hey, we need to make a ordinance modification to add manager to it as well. So that way we have kind of a redundant system. If there's one vacancy, there's someone else who can still take those actions. And so what this ordinance is doing is really two things. One is making that change so that Andrew in his current role could make take these actions. And then the second one is related to the water stop, taxi stop locations within the right of ways and within other city property. So it's really more of a technical ordinance change, not a whole lot behind it, but wanted to get the board's feedback, let them know what we're working on, and then take the city commission as the next step. So that's it.
My apologies, this is item 8. Where is this on the agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry, hang on.
Item 8.
Yes, we moved it ahead.
Fine.
I apologize. It's done out of respect to that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Like I said, if there's any questions, I'm happy to attempt, but
So what were you hoping to get from us other than just present to us? Any interaction? Do you want us to acknowledge, approve?
Let me handle that one. When you go to the duties of the Marine Advisory Board, Marine Advisory Board may consider any subject matter it considers appropriate, and in addition, specifically directed to consider and make recommendations on the following subjects. This falls within the list of subjects. You will need to take a vote. With regard to that, we've got 2 members that have conflicts of interest. Before you go to the vote, they should announce what the nature of the conflict is and then file memorandum. So there needs to be a vote on this
And what is the actual vote for?
to make a recommendation.
To go to the city commission?
Yeah.
Supporting technical edits. That's proposed.
So, Bill Walker, you can't vote? Who else do we have conflict with? Do we have enough for quorum?
Yes, should have 10, so that would bring you down to.
So, let's toss this around. One of the important things, that every single time we go in front of the city commission, we want to make it very clear that the term rubber stamp is not in our vocabulary, that we go through this, we think about it, etc. I think sometimes what the city commission forgets is that we are all prepared in advance for this. So hopefully we know the topics, we're reviewing them. After listening to the applicants, we can make an intelligent decision, but hopefully we're all on our home. So questions, concerns, any issues of whatsoever, anything about that you'd like to questions asked back? I think Bob is suggesting, yes. Norm?
Yeah, just a couple of things here, and I go back a long ways on this stuff. First of all, I think we can all agree that water taxi is an iconic representation of Fort Lauderdale, and it serves to identify us as the Venice of America. I think Mr. Walker and his crew do a fantastic job of keeping the boats looking great, and their service is unimpeachable. Now, I do have a question regarding the genesis of this ordinance, this edit. Water taxi has been landing on public right-of-ways since its inception back in the 80s. So what brings this about at this point now?
So I think there was a couple things. The first one was we entered into an agreement with the water taxi to build a terminal out on Mirror Island, the city did. And at that point, there were some questions about where they land. And so as a staff, myself went through and kind of memorialized things. We noticed that there are agreements in some areas where they have lease or dock space, and others there was historical access that you're referencing. So we're really trying to figure out how we can clean this up and make sure that it's all encompassing rather than having different scenarios and different stops.
Okay. Also, with respect to some of the stops in the New River, which most of those, if I'm not mistaken, are public access right-of-ways. I have on many occasions, and I spend, guys, just so you know, I spend over 200 days a year on the waterway in Fort Lauderdale. And I frequently use the pump out station at Smoker Park. And every time I go in there with different vessels, anywhere ranging from 40 to 100 feet, I make sure that the water trolley stop is not impeded. And that's really important so that they can maintain their service levels. However, on more than one occasion, I have been lambasted publicly for landing there by some of the operators who apparently took issue with my being there. Mind you, every time I go there, I pay for that landing. So, it's all above board. So I'm gonna just suggest, just looking at this ordinance with a revocation or suspension of license, it's all right there, it's all above board. But I might suggest, it's up to you guys to consider, that we include we include a code of conduct. And that would probably serve two purposes. One, it serves the city to protect itself. Again, going back to water taxi being an iconic representation of the city, that really helps to solidify that. And I think we all have to understand that our professional mariners could hold themselves to a higher standard. And also, it helps Mr. Walker in giving him cause to ensure that all of the operators are above board and hold themselves to a higher standard. So I would defer to Mr. Dunkel on the language on that, but I think that probably should be included in this code.
My response to that would be that this should go forward as written,
Yes,
and that could be added at a later time.
I agree.
We'll be getting a chief waterways officer, and I think that he'll probably get more, he or she will probably get more deeply involved. I agree.
One of the issues I heard mentioned was there's a concern that taxis are holding up at the ends of streets. Does the parts of the party boats and other people think they could do the same thing? How do we do that? Assume it's just enforcement at that point.
Oh, okay. Bill and I have gone back and forth on this. Seville is a classic example where you get the pontoon boats and so on and so forth. It is a public right of way that terminates at the water. Anybody, even Bob Dunkel in a boat could pick up his friends and so on. So it's not exclusively for water taxi. Going back to one of your first observations,
What about commercial boats?
same difference.
They can use.
Yeah.
Any.
So, public, yeah. If you go to page 4, subsection 1, a permitted water taxi may board and discharge passengers at any vacant city-owned dock facility, except blah, blah, blah. Doesn't include rights of way. That's what we've done in number 2. We've included the public rights of way. So that gets back to what hole they were trying to plug with that.
Right. This should also, for future reference, open up a wider discussion about how to make our waterways a little bit more user-friendly to other commercial charter operations. There are very few landings that are available at the moment right now. And just to note that we should probably try to entertain some new ideas on that.
I agree with you. When you go through the definitions in chapter 8, you'll see that there's very little written with respect to what you're addressing. We need to amplify on that. No question about it.
Look like you have a question. So any further questions? Any questions from the public?
Sorry, what was your name, sir?
My name is Ben Rogers. I'm an acting assistant city manager.
Let's take it back to you, Ben. Anything further on your part?
No, I think it's relatively simple. I mean, if you read the changes, most of it's just adding or manager throughout the code. And I do want to take the time to thank this board for the service. I do review all of your items before they get to the commission. And it's interesting to me and appreciate the work that this board does.
That's right, because when I check up on items that go to the commission, it's Ben that comes back and goes, Bob, what about this?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So, so thank everybody for this. Look.
I just wanted to, is it appropriate now to make a motion to approve the language as submitted? It's continued on to the city commission.
Yes, I think it is. Yes, please go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Would somebody second it?
Second.
We have a second. So we have a,
However, before you vote, you've got to announce the reason for your.
Yes, thank
interest.
I'm the owner of water taxi in Fort Lauderdale. It's water
So
taxi.
I need to-
Are you serious?
So
And
go back to the two people. Okay. So just so I can keep up with you, Mr. Walker,
Yes,
you are abstaining because you are the owner.
Lauderdale. Water taxi up Fort Lauderdale. What that's-
Okay, and the second person abstaining,
Robert Franks, water taxi vessel operator.
So we are supporting and recommending the request of the city commission. A number of folks talked about, I mean, if Bill Walker's head got any bigger, it wouldn't fit in this room, and rightfully so. This is, I mean, everything that the water taxi does is so important to the city, so, thank you so much for everything. you do. I mean, it's just, every time we see it, I smile, so thank you also. I think, do we have a second? Are we coming for a roll?
I
Wait
need to,
for Bob Dunkel, please.
The reason for Bob Frank's recusal is because he works for water taxi.
Yeah.
And the conflict of interest, applies to when he or she knows or would know that it has a private special gain or loss to any principal by whom he is retained.
So let's bring it to a roll call vote.
may I just ask one more question? So it's motion to approve the language in the, what are we amending?
Draft ordinance.
The draft ordinance for?
City.
No, I know it's the city commission.
Section 8-146 dot
Thanks.
Section 8, one more time.
8-146.1.
Of the,
Code of ordinances of the city of Fort Lauderdale.
thank you. Okay, and then I had, the motion was made by Mr. Swindell, and who was the second?
Bob Franks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, he can't do that.
You've been checking me? Your bill. Don't forget Bill Walker, though, we're voting by.
I will not next time, thank you. Okay, let's do this. Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. Swindell,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Norvell? Yes. Mr. Dunbar? Mr. Beckhoff?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? You cannot, you're abstaining. And Mr. Witten,
Yes, please.
thank you. Motion passes.
So thank you very much. We are recommending that to the city commission. The lifeblood of our community. Thank you very much. That brings you to dock waivers. I'm sorry to keep anybody waiting. Our first dock waiver is 501-505 Hendricks Isle on behalf of 500 Hendricks LLC. Andrew, nice to see you. Well, it's Attorney Andrew Sheen. I do want to make a very important point with respect to our other Andrew Cuba that Andrew, would you be kind enough just for the record to explain how everybody's been noticed on this and the other waivers as well? So city commission is clear that we notice everybody properly.
Certainly, for all waivers, I'm required to notice all properties within 300 feet of the subject address, and I've done so. It's something I do before each Marine Advisory Board meeting as well as before the commission.
If you go to Andrew's office, he's actually stuffing envelopes, so if we do our best to notice the public, and if we miss anybody, I'm sorry.
Andrew's been doing this for many years. The city commission, however, has recently asked that you go ahead and codify the timelines within which this should be done. That would be on your agenda for the next meeting.
So, Counselor, the applicant is requesting approval for installation of a 100-foot by 5-foot wood marginal dock extending a maximum of 5 feet into the adjacent Karen Canal. Although I'm not sure that's the correct name. So would you be kind enough to explain what we're doing here, and we can do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Brief presentation. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Shine, representing the property owner. Outlined in red is the property. It's 501 Hendricks, right on the end of Hendricks Isle. This is a closer view of it. And just a little background. This property was approved with the property to the east, the one that looks vacant on this aerial, as part of an overall development. The property on the east is going to be a condo. And when we did the approval for the property on the east, we were asking for what's called a yard modification for setbacks, which is common on Hendricks Island. And as part of asking for the yard modification, we offered to improve the property to the west. So we offered to, it was an inducement for allowing the yard modification. So we offered to improve the landscaping there, improve the drainage there, put 2 parking spaces there for guest parking because Hendricks Isle has a guest parking issue, and to replace the dock on that. So we really offered this as a reason to accept the project on the east. It wasn't required to improve the project on the site on the west. We offered this. And this is the part of the, you can see on the top left, this is the final approval stamp. This project was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. And in our approval, we did show these improvements on the west. So we showed a dock, not in the exact location, it goes a little bit over the property line here. But we showed a dock, the parking spaces, and the landscape improvements. What we didn't realize when we went to Planning and Zoning Board is that we'd have to actually come to the Marine Advisory Board and then commission to get approval for the dock itself. Everything else is part of our approved site plan, but just the dock specific portion is a Marine Advisory Board and City Commission item. And that alone is a unique circumstance. So this plan was already approved by the Planning and Zoning Board, and it's under permitting right now. This is a survey of it showing the dock. As Chair Whitten said, it's a 100-foot dock, goes 5 feet, standard dock on 10-inch pilings. This is a closer view of the dock, almost property line to property line. It's about a 1 foot 8 inches off. That's really it. Simple application. This was already approved by Planning and Zoning Board. We just didn't go through the motions yet, but now we're in permitting. Now it's time to go through the motions of bringing this to Marine Advisory Board.
And this comes to us because it's a vacant parcel?
Yes, so yes, and it's not tied to the property to the east. It's all going to be owned by the condo association at the end of the day. So technically there's no upland structure here, but it is tied to the upland structure on the east side, or it will be for the association.
Under 4719.3 sub C, you have to have a principal building. So the waiver provision allows you to waive the lack of a principal building, and that's essentially why we're here, more than the dock. Also, I would point out that under the American Land Title Survey, we've got 2 of the southernmost pilings are a bit too far. Andrew has indicated this contractor, they'll pull them back within 25 feet.
Yeah, so there are 2 pilings on the west side that were installed by the previous owner. They're 25 feet from the wet face of the seawall, which is not the requirement, but they're 26 feet or so from the property line. So instead of asking for a waiver for those, we're going to shift the mooring piles. The ones that are in violation from the previous owner, we'll shift them 1 feet to the east. So we're not asking for a waiver.
I mean, we're not waivering a dock, we're waivering the uplands.
That is correct. The lack of
That's
the planned principal building, yes.
Right. But will it have 2 different tax? Like, will it be
They have 2 folio numbers now. It's all under common ownership.
Yeah, we're going to have, I think, 12 different tax folios. 11 are going to be for the individual condo units.
That's after the condo.
Yeah.
But right now, you've got 2 separate folio numbers later on.
It'll be owned by the association. So those are the common elements on the east side of the property.
And those, I'm assuming there will also be dock for that association.
Yes.
The one thing I will point out is that the way the code is written, they are entitled to have a liverboard there. That's a matter of right. Correct?
Yeah, the code allows a little more. It's not our intention to do a little more, but yes, the code does allow it. So I don't think the condo owners.
That's an extreme, that's one of the most sensitive areas, I would say, in town. The amount of liverboards on Hendricks and the density of their, very tough. My biggest concern there, and it's really not your issue because you addressed it, my biggest concern is that we can maintain their 40% width canal because those docks need to be serviced, so seawalls need to be serviced, etc. I don't think there's an issue where they under Shine's property, but a number of the boats that stick out there, etc. We're gonna have a problem. This is something our friend Norbert brought up some time ago. Is you're not gonna be able to get barges down there to serve seawall. You're gonna have to remove pilings. I mean, it's gonna be a big deal. So I appreciate everybody's sensitivity, but Hendricks is a tough area. It's also an area where I'd say it's one of the greatest polluters from the liverboards. And I had spoke to a guy, I'm betting you guys are gonna know him, but he's an environmental guy and I can't think of his name. But I asked the question of whether or not, this condo is substantially, it's the frame, the shell is up now. So the shot that Andrew showed, they made progress, the building's up. So my question is, if we are approving a new property, new construction, can we not have a tie-in to the sewers at the dock? And the answer is yes. The issue, I'm told, is gravity, but you can have, and not necessarily have an expensive pump-out system. But if you're doing new construction, you literally can have a sewer clear out right there, get home, plug your boat in. It's something we should talk about in the future. It's not your issue, but it's something we do need to be concerned about because the shit floating in Hendricks is just unacceptable. Any further questions?
I do want to alleviate one concern here. The docks on the east side of the east side project, those are previously existing and they're going to be perpendicular to the property line. The docks that we're proposing here are perpendicular now. They're going to be two parallel spaces.
We would never approve. It's going to be
Understood. So yeah, we're making the situation a little bit better. They're going to be dock parallel instead of perpendicular.
And with due respect to Andrew, he's using the most recent data, et cetera, and representing his client. He shows the waterway with little greater. We have it about 100 feet. That's best case. So we still don't have an issue, but it's going to be a discussion we'll pick up with Bob a little later. So any further questions? Yes.
Are you moving the pilings that are out beyond 25 feet, or are you just removing them?
We're going to move them a foot to the east.
And your contractor's confident that he can get a secure footing moving them that short? Because at the last meeting, there was a lot of talk about moving a piling a foot causes a lot of problems.
So our contractor is confident. That's not to say we can definitely do it, but our contractor is confident. We could also just remove them. We don't really need those mooring piles. So it could be a game time decision at that point, but we don't need it.
I'd make the motion to approve.
So before we do, any further questions from the public? So we have a motion to approve, we have a second. Okay. Have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. I'm sorry, the second was Mr. Frank? Walker, thank you. Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Norvell,
Yes.
Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Beckoff,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Twindell,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Chair Whitten.
Yes, but let's be clear that our recommendation to the city commission is subject to moving or pulling the pilings that are in violation.
I think he's gonna have to then, council, is he gonna have to amend the motion?
Motion to amend. Motion to amend in a first and a second.
Mr. Twindell, did you hear that?
So we need to make a new motion, please. Somebody make a motion.
Make a motion to amend it. I mean,
Somebody else second it.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. So we'll have another roll call vote. Please. on the
Okay,
motion to amend.
motion to approve. What was the
Subject to
condition?
pulling or moving pilings.
So that they're compliant.
In compliance, so they are in compliance.
That was Mr. Brunel, and the second was. That's all? Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, we're gonna do it again. Okay. Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. Swindell,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes. Again.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Norvell, Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Mr. Beckoff,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Chair Whitten.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you. Okay, next, our next waiver is, 629 Idlewild Drive. Doug Summers is somewhere here, or? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, please come on up. So, you are? Ackerman, Steve Wick. So this is first of all, if you haven't seen the site, you can take my little finger off if I can have that property. It is the most beautiful property, wonderful site, great location, very, very respectful neighbors. The applicant is requesting approval for installation of 5 10-inch wood pilings and 2 triple pile mooring clusters, requiring a dock waiver distance limitation. These structures extend a maximum distance of 60+ feet from the wet face property line as shown in the exhibit, and I will let you.
Are you?
Thank you very much.
My name's Rockman. I'm the general manager with the Dock Experts,
Do you mind,
representing
speaking up? Your name is,
Andrew Ockerman, Ockerman,
okay, thank you.
the general manager for the Dock Experts, who's representing Doug Summers. It's pretty simple. There's existing, pilings on his dock that are rotted that we need to replace. And he has a couple more piles that are old as well, that are inland a little ways to moor his new vessel that's gonna be there. So we're gonna be putting 2-3 clusters, on the outside there, roughly about 10 feet, 10 to 12 feet farther out than the existing mooring piles that are there.
Go ahead.
Other than that, that's pretty much what we're looking for. Obviously, we're not gonna be extending beyond the 30% width of that waterway due to the extraordinary width he's located at. And it's just simply to moor up his vessel properly. That is.
So this is a shot, again, beautiful location, big boat out there, very wide waterfront area. Next slide, please, Andre. So will you explain what you're doing here? It might be helpful.
Okay, so there on the dock itself, on the T dock, there's 5 or 6 piles that are all compromised that we're gonna be pulling and replacing. And then on the outside, there's a couple mooring piles we're gonna pull and install new triple clusters. As close to the property line on each end as we can. I believe it's 5 foot that we're allowed in center.
So very straightforward, again, wonderful location, we're trying to get the word extraordinary circumstances out of our vocabulary, and that's not an issue here. But that is something that there's clearly wave action, et cetera. This is not what the applicant's asking for, but that is an area where we certainly could justify, and you see a boat there, et cetera. Very straightforward application. Questions from the board? Comments from the board? Questions from the public?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, just real quick, I'm looking here doing a measurement, might be on that yacht there, looks like the sea face to the outboard part, looks like it's about 57 feet out. Yeah, so I'm trying to look at measurements, so that's almost 60. You're gonna put pilings on the outside, 60 feet out?
I think if you look at my plans, I think it's on the 3rd or 4th slide. We will be from the property line 60 feet out.
Okay, furthest out, and it's gonna be
Would be
parallel to the road,
to the property.
to the
Yes.
property, okay,
Yes.
all right.
Do you,
It'll pretty match the property line, 'cause it's square, it's not angled, so we'll be 60 feet out.
are there pilings out there already?
There is two singles.
They're at the 60 foot?
No, they're a little farther, a little closer in.
And do you know the number?
I believe when I did the measurements, it's right around 8 to 10 feet that we're gonna want a little bit farther. Yeah.
So you obviously, so we have the issue that Attorney Dunkel brings up all the time about making sure you can see lifts, floating docks, et cetera, at night. No problem seeing that boat at night, so I don't think triple clusters are an issue. I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other concerns, questions? From the public, any concerns, questions? Would somebody like to make a recommendation to approve this waiver?
I recommend we approve it.
Tyler Brunel?
You.
I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you.
That was you, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar.
It was Jason Dunbar. I thought Tyler had your hand up. So we have a second over here for somebody.
Second.
Thank you.
Rebecca, let's bring it to a vote, please. So we are recommending approval of this dock waiver to the city.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. Swindell,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Norvell left out, so she was not voting. Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Mr. Beckhoff,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Chair Whitten.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes,
sir.
When a yacht is not docked there, are those triple pilings lit in any way as an aid to navigation? So people know that
I
they're out
believe on
there?
my plans, they're supposed to have reflective tape on there. We have to put reflective tape. We do band them on the top and we put caps on there, and on the top of the caps, we put reflective tape so they can be seen. Cause they're gonna get, I'm sure they're gonna get hit by somebody.
Yeah, the yacht's not there.
His
not quite as-
neighbor just got hit, and we just, 410, I think 410 Idlewild, her dock just got slammed into. So we're gonna be rebuilding that for her, but those people they're getting hit off.
Is there a way today with LED and solar powered light?
You know, it's funny you say that. I got a client, Lighthouse Point, that we're trying to maximize his dock. He wants to go out about 45 feet. And he literally is talking to my electrician about putting out lights on the outside that are actually green and red on each end of the property. On each end of the dock, on the T-dock. He's trying to do, he's gonna put a boat lift in the T-dock. The problem is Lighthouse Point's trying to give some hassle about it. I don't know how that's gonna react.
I would use red with green. Like a light, or very low yellow. Not green.
He's trying to put something right.
I don't know if red, green's
Ooh,
smart.
5 degrees to the right.
I'll work on getting a Coast Guard position on it. They've expressed apprehension of lighting on pilot in waterways in the past. Let me work on getting a.
So that's why I think they only require the reflective tape.
They don't mind it.
Yeah, just one quick comment. There is where your dock is here, there is a red nav marker. I don't know if it's lit or not. It's not lit, so,
One real close to
yeah,
that.
real close. So if you're navigating over there, you're gonna be well inside of that red marker. So that's
Correct.
people see that. So I think you're in good shape. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Wait, Bob, I'm sorry. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I want to bring something to the board's attention. If you look at page 4, you'll see that in the first column in the matrix, it says structure distance from extended property line. These properties in Idlewild are similar to Cordova. Their property line ends at the western edge of the right of way, according to the plat. However, there's when you look at the warranty deed, there's a clause in there that says lot and block number and so on and so forth. And that strip of land lying east of the above described land between Ocean View Drive and New River Sound. I looked at that and I went, wait a minute, we haven't vacated that. So how did they get title to it? And I happen to know Dan O'Connor, who drafted this, is a very close personal friend of mine. But I started digging into it, and there's a Florida Supreme Court case, can't remember what year it is, but a very important case for those of us dealing in this area, Burkhardt versus Town of Fort Lauderdale. Essentially, what that case did, it's a little bit different than a lot of the other cases, because most of the other cases say wherever the right-of-way borders the water, and it's dedicated to the city, the riparian rights belong to the city. This case was a little bit different because I think the city of Fort Lauderdale wanted to take the accreted land and they wanted to create a marina out there. Supreme Court said, that accreted land is going to be part of the title of the upland property. So that's why in these cases, we will be measuring it not from their upland property line on the west side of the roadway, but we will be measuring them from this area on the basically wet face. It will be an exception to wet face versus property line.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, if we had measured it from the west side of Ocean Drive, these numbers would have been humongous.
Put a piling in to be down there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So,
He'd have to have a boat lift for his 110 footer.
so thank you very much. The next dock waiver is 155 Isle of Venice. Victor Aguilar, and I'm not gonna do well here. Yahira Rosario, how'd I do? Okay. So Victor, pleasure, nice to see you join us. Are you presenting or your attorney's presenting?
I'm presenting. I don't have an attorney.
You fired?
No. She did the DRC approval and I'm doing this.
Okay, so please go ahead.
Represent the guy that presented.
So very straightforward. You got the floor.
Here's a copy of the brief. You can take one and pass it around.
Thank you.
My name is Victor Aguilar. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm a resident of 155 Isle of Venice. And South Towers condominium. Slide, please. So, I started the process back in April of last year. We started with submitting terms to the county. We got those approved in last summer. We submitted to the City of Fort Lauderdale. When we did that, the city came back and said there's 2 lifts already on the property. We need to get a third lift. We needed to get a DRC approval. So we started that process July, August. Here, a couple months to get that approval. We got that approval. And we got a few days after that, we got a permit from the city. That permit was issued on October 31st. The contractor started working on the boat lift late November, last week of November. In a few days, the boat lift all together. First few inspections on the boat lift, everything passed with flying color, training, the timing. We got the final survey. We submitted that to the city. That's when the city inspector said, "Hey, everything looks fine. However, I think the lift goes outside 25 feet, or a few feet." Next slide, please. So here's a picture of the area of 155 out of Venice. And here's a picture of the canal. You can see the canal. It's 170 feet wide from property line to property line. That's where the boat lift sits right now. It's 33.5 feet from the property line, measured by the survey. So the waiver that I'm requesting, it's 8.57 feet. Here's the top view of the boat lift as it sits today. Here on the right hand side, you can kind of see a close up view. What happened with this? I'm a new boat owner, never had a boat lift in my life. Learned a lot of things in the past couple months. The contractor never took into consideration the depth of the dock right here in this area. So for those 2 beams that you see there, those beams need to go out level, about 4, almost 5 feet. In order to do that, the lift has to be where you see it right now. If you move it any closer, the beams won't go down level. There's a steep. The bottom here goes from 6 feet to about 3 feet. So when the beams go down, they don't go down level. So that's the reason the contractor had to move the lift 5 feet over. And then not only that, but the engines of the boat, they need about 1.5 feet of clearance. So that and the bottom of the canal, that's the reason that they have to move the lift 8 feet. Next slide, please. Here's the view from the canal. You can see the boat lift and the pilings. And these are the updated plans. This shows the 25% setback. You can see due to the width of the canal, we're nowhere near the 25% setback. We're well inside of that. You can see the 33.5 feet on the property line right here. And the width of the canal. Next slide, please. Like I said before, so the waiver that I'm requesting for 8.57 feet. And I talked about, I know the chairman said not say extraordinary circumstances, but the topography of the dock is the main reason that the lift needed to be moved forward. Obviously, I talked about the structure doesn't exceed the 25% width of the waterway. Obviously, there's an environmental impact with keeping a boat out of the water. And obviously, we want to protect the vessel, diving events, severe weather, the weight created by other boats in the canal.
With that, I'd like to thank you and I'll take any questions.
So first of all, so this is after the fact. And we discuss it, we talk openly here. So my question of Bob and Andrew, and this is obviously a contractor screw up, but the culpability still becomes on the applicant, safe to say. So the question is it our job to punish the applicant because he just went in and put something in the water? We've often heard sometimes it makes sense to do and seek forgiveness than to ask up front. So I think that you've done everything right. I think you got caught with your pants down here. I think your contractor did you somewhat of a service, but that's just me. It doesn't look like it's an overly heavy lift. What size boat are you planning?
So 32%.
So it's not gonna necessarily stick out over anything. Safe to say that the issue is at the back of the dock, you have to dredge. I don't know if it's old riprap or whatever, but we're not gonna let it dredge. So unfortunately, the applicant should have come up to us initially and explained what was going on, but I don't think we can punish the owner here. So with that, I'm gonna throw it out to questions to anybody.
Mr. Chairman,
I think it's,
Go ahead.
I have concerns when we say punish. I don't know that's appropriate.
No, I
for-
understand. I'm using that to levelly. I'm trying to say.
I have a problem with that's in the record because we're trying just to enforce the code as it exists. I mean, I don't want to be a jerk with anybody either. It's frustrating to me for the owner to go through all these other approvals. And now he's almost on home plate and he's told, wait a minute, you've got a problem here. I don't understand why our regulatory folks can't communicate more effectively on different aspects of something like this. But that's just my commentary. My question is, with your engines, how far will you be sticking out with your boat on? So right now, the boat from the dock to the engine, there's about 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet.
You won't be back.
Yeah, the boat, I don't have a picture, but yeah, the boat will be back on the left.
Okay.
So from the dock to the engines is about 2.5 to 3 feet.
When you permitted it originally, where was this dock? Where was this lift supposed to be? Was it inside the biggest island?
Can you go back like 2 slides? Yeah, this one here. So the original plans, you can see those 2 pilings right there. The original plans of the pilings here. Right about there,
Like right against the dock.
about 1.5 feet.
So that contract, that wouldn't even fit you going front end. No. So. I mean. That's not even a legit plan. From the start.
So we're not gonna ask you who the contractor is, but safe to say it's a bit of a screw up. So here's where we are.
No further.
Go ahead, Bob.
One part I want to respond. One of we cannot redact the word punish from the record. It's okay that you said what you said, but we can't take it out of the record.
Look, so I would like us to refrain from using that word moving forward, I guess.
That's fine, but I just want to make the point, we can't take it out of the record. It's already there.
And I was making my point that I'd rather us not use the word punish as a word.
Okay, and on the second point, which kind of addresses that. Makes no difference in the code whether this is an after the fact or before the fact. The code is written in such a way that if you've got these mooring structures or mooring devices out farther than what they're supposed to, comes here to the Marine Advisory Board, and they have a right to take it to the city commission.
I have 2 things. So first of all, the guy who approved this doc, that got approved through the code, right? It should not.
Agree.
Because
I've already got it in my notes.
Who came out to approve that project should have said, this is nothing like you did, that you put in. So
Did you have an engineer certified? That's the problem. Staff oftentimes will defer to what the engineer certifies.
Yeah, so in order to get the DRC approval, that approval took like 3 months.
Right.
Plans, survey, engineers,
money.
a lot of money.
So my next question is, your existing dolphin pilings that were there, this boat, it looks like it, but this boat lift pilings are behind them?
Yeah, they're one inside.
Like how many feet, you know?
So
We're talking about 10, or not 10, but like 5 feet, 3 feet, 1 feet?
3 or 4 feet.
Okay, so like, yeah, so we already have
You can
dolphin
see
pilings.
So
We already have the condo associations dolphin pilings that are sitting past this, so it's not actually changing the.
Shades of Hemingway Lane.
Okay. So, Barry, one quick question, do we have letters of support or objection from anyone? Didn't we get one letter of support? I don't believe it was.
So when I submitted for the DRC approval, we got letters.
Mr. Flanagan.
I think it's on slide page 23 or slide 23. It's the aerial showing the boat lift and the boat lift side. The pilings appear to be almost identical to the one that's existing. The boat that's on the existing lift, I'm guessing is about 32, 33 foot, somewhere in that area. So the guy was putting the pilings in, you probably just, well, here, that must be where they go, and this is history.
Okay, well. Further questions? Let's bring it around. Would somebody like to make a motion to move this forward? Mr. Flanagan makes a motion to approve. Second. Mr. Price, second. Let's bring it to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Norville. Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Mr. Beckhoff,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Mr. Swindell.
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Chair Whitten.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So you're a piling.
Excellent job, guys. Thank you for recognizing the efforts. So this brings us to my
That's why.
agenda. I know everybody's getting tired and it's getting late, but okay. So, old new business. So let me go through a couple things real quickly and then we're gonna have, Bob Dunkel share a few things with us. Andres, would you mind putting up slide number 6? So we had talked about this some time ago, about repairing, doing work on waterways, so I'm renting a house right now up on 16th Street, and we have what's gonna be a great. So this is, this is Tom Cripps. One of his guys decided to, while they were very busy, to grind sand with barge. Obviously, it's unacceptable. Hey, were you ever able to go over to him and call them?
Yes, I made contact.
So this, we're obviously not able to do this. This has been discussed ad nauseam. So you see stuff again reported. We got it on the water. We make that happen. So it's just simply not acceptable. Couple other things before we get to Bob. Actually, I'm not going to do that. So we had asked Bob if he would. The term we used is to discuss semantics and pragmatics. That sounds real cool, but basically what that is how are we interpreting some of the terms and how are we using some of the terms? And we have the proverbial whiteboard behind us. We're not going to go through that. But so Bob said, well, let's talk about just a few topics. And so we limited the topics to basically how we're measuring. Are we measuring wet face to wet face or property line to property line? Obviously, what we learned from the city commission is if we can agree on that one path, then we're eliminating half the problems and discussing what the rationale was for deciding. So we're going to talk about wet face to wet face, property line to property line. Extraordinary circumstance. Does it really apply anymore? Safe to say Bob's had enough of that word. He's working on changing and eliminating from our vocabulary. The third thing was, if I sit around here and I say, guys, what is the difference between 25%, 25 feet, 30%, 40%, we're all just shaking our heads. We all have a pretty good handle on it, but the contractors don't, and many of the folks throughout the city do not. So I've asked Bob if he'd take a few moments simply share some thoughts. This is freewheeling, no motions, etc., just talking, so you don't mind.
Let's, I want to defer to Andrew because I think you had something you wanted to
Oh,
bring
yes,
in
you
early
wanted
business.
Well, it's less official. We're fine. Steve does so much for everybody here. You've all got M&Ms and hats on the back. Well, you told you. And it just so happens that he's turning 75.
Oh,
today. So we thought we'd put something together special for him. I think Lewis is coming out now with it.
oh,
Timing wasn't that great.
I hope you're breaking my balls because that's my day with you.
You're not seeing a song in seconds.
Still baking.
Yeah, I told you you should have gone.
It's probably.
Well, we can start.
Okay, while we're waiting for the festivities, let me take. Does everybody have this list in front of them? Okay, the third item on the list. No.
This one?
Third item on the list is 25%, 25 feet, 30%, 30%. I can dispose of that real quickly because I believe everybody got a copy of this memorandum, which basically discusses the fact that the waivers that we're involved in have to be measured from the property line. Now, when we dealt with Hemingway Landings, the measurement that they made was from wet face to wet face according to their topographic survey. Got down to splitting some very fine hairs, the difference between the wet face measurement and the property line to property line measurement. And in one sense of the word, it makes more sense to measure it from wet face to wet face because you're looking to preserve that 40%. However, when we started looking at different ways of measurement and what the contractors would need to go through to establish where the wet face was, wet face at high tide, wet face at low tide, what do you do when you got riprap? What do you do when you have, and the more we looked at it, the more we started to gravitate back towards, let's stay with property line. Because that can. Time out. Oh.
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear chairman. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. My wish is to continue hanging out with people I truly care for, and that is you guys. So thank you very much.
Turn to think around.
Okay.
Hold it, that's a 57.
Is there enough to share?
Diabetes. You know, it's pretty interesting. You know, 75, 50 didn't bother me. 60 was, oh, that's a wake up call. 75 is. 75. Thank you very much. This will be easy. I can actually think about it. I can't tell you how much this means. Having moved down here, we've been down here for 10 years, and I made a whole different life down here. And my wife said to me, you know, your friends are so different. And I said, well, my friends don't grade me on my performance. You know, when I worked for a company previously, when you made $1 million, they give you a big pat on the back. When you don't make $1 million, they don't even acknowledge you. And I said, the difference at this point in my life, what we have here is, this is what I get. Nice job. And that means so much more to me. So I am very thankful, dear friends. Thank you very much, guys. All right, so thank you for that.
Back to the more.
Back to the pump out shit.
My faces.
Yeah.
All right, you got it now. Thank
So anyway, let's talk about 25%, 25 feet, 30%. Chapter 8 is not ULDR. You can't get a variance from it. It requires that vessels cannot exceed more than 30% of the width of the waterway measured from the property line. That's been in the code for a real long time. 1997, we did the ULDR, so we borrowed that language, measuring it from the property line. So you got 30% on one side, 30% on the other, leaving 40% open in the middle for navigation. So that answers the 40%. The 30% also, they can't go out more than that. when we did the ULDR, we included mooring structures more than just vessels, which were referenced in chapter 8. With regard to the 25%, 25 or 30%, you will notice that under mooring or dolphin piles, they cannot extend more than 30% of the width of the waterway or 25 feet. So you've got two different standards there. One for boat slips and a different standard for mooring or dolphin piles. The term extraordinary circumstances. Mary, I'm going to defer to you as the historian of the ages. How many waivers since 1997 has the commission turned down? That many? I can only remember two. Yeah. So, yeah. And quite frankly, they have been consistent with regard to granting these waivers. And I said at the last commission meeting, the question was asked to me, well, how do you view this? You view it in terms of the array of other waivers that have been granted under similar circumstances. Obviously, you can't take a waiver that was granted on a waterway that's 400 feet in width and compare that to one that's only 100 feet. But if you look at the whole array going back and forth, even ChatGPT, T or D, and sometimes I get confused, talks in terms of making sure that it's consistent. Now, during the Hemingway Landings things with the ARIA, one of the attorneys took the term extraordinary circumstances. And she quoted something that I found to be almost precisely what you would find if you just went to Google. And it basically was something that's beyond your circumstances. Well, that's way out of whack in terms of all of the waivers that have been granted since 1997. We can't take it out of our vocabulary, and I'm suggesting we should be administering this the same way we have over the last 28 years. We are now working on changing that so that you will need to show a special exception by virtue of weighing those factors that would favor a granting of the waiver and those factors which would militate against. For example, there are portions of New River. Let's take Florida, old Florida. You would take those factors into consideration in denying a waiver under special under denying the waiver where mile down New River, those factors wouldn't apply. So we're having to comb through a whole array of different factors. It's going to require a balancing. And quite frankly, in my opinion, this commission should not be gravitating towards this new notion of what extraordinary circumstances is until we change the code. I have heard other attorneys suggest, and I think it's correct, that it may be an equal protection violation to have all those 28 years handled one way, and then somebody comes along and you use a different yardstick for the very first time. So anyway, we still have to stick with extraordinary circumstances in our vocabulary until we come back with an ordinance. I have gotten some stuff from Bob Franks that have been very helpful. I've gotten some stuff from Alan Dodd, formerly in charge of the Army Corps of Engineers. It's going to be a daunting task. We will be discussing this en masse, trying to go through which factors should go on one side, which factors should go on the other. I don't want to take sole responsibility for that. I want to rely upon collective wisdom in this room. Let me think. Oh, another factor, and we got this from Robert Washington. He gave us some stuff from Pompano Beach, which further solidified my notion of let's keep measuring this from property line to property line, because we can go to the flats and get that. What do they have up there in Pompano?
Andre, will you put up slide number 17 while Bob's talking?
Measurement reference line. The measurement standard utilized for the purpose of measuring the distance from mooring structures, tidal flood barriers, riprap, and other similar structures and waterways. when the reported property line is seaward of the wet face of the original title, flood barrier, or riprap, the wet face of the original title, flood barrier, or riprap is to be utilized as the measurement reference line. When the property line is landward of the original title, blah, 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 blah. I look at that and I go, oh, wow, isn't it just easier to go property line than try to maneuver your way through that? So anyway, that's how I have come to the conclusion, and some of the other people in my office have sided with me. Let's stick with property line.
The other thing about that too is that like, you got a seawall here, it's 2 feet.
Yeah.
And then you put a new seawall on that you can't rip this one out, and you add another foot. You've just changed that width of the canal for me on the other side,
Yes,
which now I might be over
excellent point.
anything. So
Show you right now.
if you're choosing to add a 20-foot or seawall width, and you got 5 feet in your canal, you know what I mean? The standard. So I mean, like,
So guys, look at this.
that doesn't make sense.
This is a new seawall that's going in. I mentioned this. So this is a spot where they could not use the existing seawall because it had crumbled. So it's cheaper to simply cistern and use sheet piles. Well, guess what? If we went wet face to wet face, we just gave that guy an extra foot and a half or so.
No, we didn't. We took it away.
No. No, because you're allowing him to go out for what took it away.
You still took it away. If it's a
Wow.
100-foot canal, he adds 3 more feet to his thing. It's wet face. Now it's a 97-foot canal.
Well,
And my wet face,
but if you measure 25 feet from property line versus wet face, he actually gets out farther into.
Correct.
yes, correct. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If he adds 2, 3 more feet to it, and he turns a 100-foot canal from wet face to wet face, he adds a 3-foot more seawall. Now it's 97. He's also affected my property on the other side of the canal.
Where you have
So that,
property.
and it doesn't change.
It makes me look back at chapter 8, which was written years and years ago, at the wisdom of the folks that decided to do it that way.
I'm not sure that he anticipated how much work would be done to seawalls and the longevity of the wall, et cetera.
Because they were way thinner back then too.
Those
Yeah, it's a real issue, because if they're doing this on both sides, you really shrunk that.
I know Norm has a question.
Yeah, Bob, you had recommended some GIS mapping of New River in particular. Does the GIS mapping take into account the property lines?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Right, and just as a point of information, you go to Broward County, property assessor, you can find these maps on there. If you want to actually download that, it's in, it's what we call a shape file. And actually, you can go through the state of Florida to get all the property lines for the whole Broward County. But then you gotta break it down if you wanna see where they are. But, that's, one project that would be good to see. In order of the chapters, we've got the bathymetric depth. Okay, is there a way that we can get the GIS information, property lines, and have that on a map of the river, so we can say, well, what is the road width? All right, once you take that, you have data, and you say, all right, what areas do we need to focus on? Like area east of town, areas that are wider. Okay, it's not an issue. Where should we designate special navigation areas that need, say, more attention, or to revise maybe some ordinances? But we're looking at it from the navigation points, looking at the property owner point, and we have to come with some happy medium that works. But you can't do that without data. You got to have the data.
And following what you just said, with the bathymetric, one of the things that I can see in the balancing of the interests is not just the straight 25 and so on and so forth, but the depth of that channel may be skewed more towards the north side than the south side.
Right.
So you may end up applying it differently based on those factors. These are things that we need to bake into that end product.
On a property value perspective, that could be, I don't know how the city does this or if it can do this, but if you can chart the New River like that and show that to the current owners of that, to say, hey, these areas, what if we have identified as areas that we would be less likely
Areas of concern.
that to give a waiver.
Sure.
This is not, then property buyers and sellers understand that, and it changes the value and or the concept of what like you're not just walking in here buying it because, hey, you have the room and you have the thing, but you don't understand that a big boat goes through there and that's where it lays up, or that's where it has to lay up. So to me, I don't know how the city can inform that, but we talked about putting stuff on your deeds and your, figuring out where your lines are so that when you buy the property, that you can put this much, width on the canal instead of just guessing.
I've recently, received some documents, published by people in the business of selling real estate, advising the customers as to the width of the waterway and how far out they can go and so on and so forth. But you're taking it a step further, and it would be good to have the city.
Because I'll tell you right now, as a real estate agent, the last thing you want to do is tell them what they can do. Because you're liable for that. If you tell them you can put a 25-foot wide boat, whatever, and they can only put a 10-foot wide boat.
As a 47-year practitioner of real estate, you probably don't want to hear what I think about real estate agents.
Yeah, I get it. Me too. Me too.
For 50 years, we can spend an hour
Yeah.
talking.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you'll be hard pressed for someone to say, can I put my boat here? I go, you're going to have to check the property and make sure it's right. I'm not going to tell you yes or no, because.
Speaking of which, this is a good one for you. Do you know why God made snakes before lawyers? Why is it good for you? Because they needed the practice.
Two other things before we close. Barry chokes on his M&Ms. So first of all, who would have thought that Captain Franks would be a computer geek? So thank you for your contributions. The other thing I passed around, Andrew had printed this up a couple months ago. I didn't send it around. It's a question as to where the pump out stations are, how many. It doesn't fill up a big page, but there are 4 of them here and explain what's going on. And Barry, if you don't have them, you do now. So any further questions? Anything else? Good, welfare, etc. Yes.
You left. Long suggested that the extraordinary circumstances not be used like Tyler would bring forth, waiver request. Isn't the person seeking the waiver creating their own extraordinary circumstance?
Not if you use Ellen Bogdanoff stuff.
She also used an extenuating circumstance,
Yeah.
not extraordinary.
I mean, let me say, one of the other things that Andrew and I have discussed, and I don't know whether you've been included in these, is instead of using 25 feet, 35, going out to 35 feet.
That was Ben Sorensen.
Ben Sorensen, yeah. Okay, well, independent of that, I've been getting it. Yeah, it's great. Because we have a tendency on this board and the city commission, it's the Venice of America. Marine industries represent multi-billion dollars of GDP for Broward County. We want to encourage it, but it's somewhere you need to find a balance as to how can you justifiably deny that dock waiver? Because I have to look at it from the perspective, okay, let's say one was denied. That person goes to circuit court on what they call a petition for writ of certiorari. I've got to figure out how am I going to defend that? And quite frankly, we have been weighing this thing so much in using factors that were in favor of the granting and really ignoring for the most part until we started to talk about the moratorium factors that would justify not giving it.
So we have some work cut out for us. The problem is, with respect to sunshine laws, I want you all to understand that. So I'm in contact with Bob Dunkel. You all collectively do your own thing with Andrew, et cetera, because we can't speak. But we don't leave this meeting and then see you again in a month. This man is working very hard. Andrew's working very hard. Lewis, who joined, working very hard. There's a great deal going on behind the scenes. Excuse me. And it's just the timing. We reached a point where our tolerance level is we're not going to tolerate it anymore. We're not going to take the shit in the water. We're not going to deal with any of this. We're going to make sure we can preserve this for our kids. And we need to charge this guy, and we thank you very much, Bob. Anything else? Yes, Bob, slow down. No, it can't happen.
Look, I do have, no.
Okay, we give Bob's window.
Just a reminder, St. Patrick's Day Parade is this Saturday. Hope you all show up and, enjoy the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Thank you very much for that.
Anthony McGovern is the Grand Marshal.
I do have one last thing. Northeast, I guess that would be 20th Avenue. You got the bridge over Middle River. The waterway gets wider and wider and wider as you go out. A gentleman that I practiced law with for a good many number of years brought to my attention an advertisement that he ran across where people were advertising the sale of property, and you could berth a 400-foot vessel there. And 3 of them. Okay. How? Yeah, that's what the advertisement says. Thank you, real estate agents. Anyway.
Or
Next week's meter. Working on, if you look at that and you measure the width of the waterway from property to property line, you go thousands of feet.
Right.
Before you get over there to the intercoastal. We're thinking about making a provision that would be prospective only with regard to 20th, where it would be considered a waterway of no more than 400 feet in width. That would allow for a 100-foot vessel. Anyway, that'll be brought to you in the future.
That's a great.
Future maybe meetings.
We have a lot of activity up there in the wide area. Anybody else before we say goodbye?
We have anything from the public?
Anybody else? No. So, if we're all set, we're gonna say goodnight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.